Hello and welcome to the Celtic Down Under podcast. I'm your host, Jarrod, and joining me tonight are John and Liam. How are you, John?
I'm very well. Getting dead busy at work, which is nice. Bit of a distraction from being locked down still. But apart from that, I'm absolutely fine. Nice in Sydney, getting into spring.
How are you, Liam?
Yeah, I'm good. I've been rewatching the classics, the old Rocky films recently, and that's got me in the mood to go back to the gym. So that's been good fun.
You're gonna need to put on the Eye of the Tiger whilst you're on the treadmill or the cycle, whatever it is.
Yeah, all good up here.
Yeah, it's boring lockdown still in Melbourne. Been a couple of events that I was going to do have been pushed back to later in the year. So, yeah, everyone's going through this stuff. Those who haven't, hurry up and get vaccinated so we can travel, damn it.
Please. let me out of my flat.
Make it our 80% so we can, walk down the court without having to wear a mask. That would be perfect. Thanks, everyone.
That'd be very nice.
That's my public service announcement today. So let's crack on into the old Celtic Football Club stuff. So football was back. We had a Celtic 3-0 win against Ross County. In goals was Joe Hart. Right back was Juranovic. Carter Vickers and Starfelt at centre back. Taylor at left back. Rogic, McGregor and Turnbull in the midfield. Abada, Ayeti and Jota up front. John, what was your thoughts on the game?
Well, I think really the score flattered Celtic more than it should have. I think for a large parts of the game we actually played quite poor. I think that was largely down to how County came out and their formation, and they've done it to us last season and they managed to get a few results and stuff. But look, at some points they had 6 or 7 people behind the ball. It was just complete a game of attrition for Celtic. We were just non-stop trying to batter them, and they just defended really, really well. I just think we were making some really poor decisions, especially in the first half. I've got some notes about some players and what I notably think that their performances were, like Turnbull. I think Turnbull had some really poor passes. I think Rogic disappeared, and that's always true when he comes back from Australia. I think Jota played okay. I think he played well for his debut. I think one of the biggest reasons why we played as poor as we did, especially in the first half, was, I think, and this is great to have this problem, right? But I think Jota and Abada were just so desperate to score a goal. And that because they were so desperate, they made some really, really poor decisions. I think they probably got an earful at halftime because that changed really quick. And that's when we started to see, some crosses coming in and stuff. And actually we managed to exploit those. I think Juranovic had a really poor game. I think he was getting absolutely rinsed. Now I can't remember the guy's name for County, but I think it's Cook, the winger, the left winger or the right winger. I think he switched at one point. But he was just absolutely destroying Juranovic down the wing and stuff. Hart saved some fucking fantastic chances. He really kept us in it. I think, look, there was a chance when Ross County could have gone ahead really early on in the first half and stuff, and that would have changed the game altogether for Celtic, to be honest. Carter Vickers, great. I think he had a good debut. Didn't do much wrong. Fluky goal, but who cares? It was, taking a shot is always worth the risk, and great goal, I guess. But overall, he didn't do anything wrong, and he just looks like a no-nonsense defender. And I think the last thing I just wanted to bring up, I think, and it's really worth talking about, because I know a lot of people have been talking about this in other pods and on the forums and stuff, but Ayeti is not Kyogo. He doesn't play like Kyogo. He doesn't do the same runs as Kyogo. He doesn't he doesn't split the defense in the same way. He's a proper poacher, right? So he's going to stick around and look for the scraps and try and get headers, and we have to exploit that. And I think that's exactly what we did in the second half, and that's why we started getting results. And I think we just, as Celtic fans, need to be aware that we're not going to get the same type of striker as what we would like. And I think we should probably have a formation. And I think Ange, obviously, he's not an idiot, so he's going to probably do something like that. But I just don't think we're going to have this, busting a gut to get back pushing forward type of striker with Ayeti. I think what we need to do is lots of crosses and then splitting passes from the defence through to the forward position and stuff. But yeah, I think Ayeti is good. He's just a different type of striker. So yeah, that's overall. I think the result was good. Obviously, a win's a win, so I'm happy with that. I just don't think we played particularly well compared to some other recent matches.
What are your thoughts, Liam?
Yeah, I'd agree with a lot of that. I think generally, though, just looking at the game as a whole thing, that's a game last season we would either have drawn or lost. And I think that's a real... You can actually... at the stage that Celtic are in just now in our development, our rejuvenation, if you like, you can actually sometimes learn a lot more from a bad game than you can from a demolition. Taking 6 off a Dundee and St Mirren doesn't ultimately actually show you much of what the team's about. But a game like that, where you've got a very determined and very dogged resistance from the other team, who were very well organised and came with a clear game plan. And, for a significant portion of the game, it was working for them. Credit to Ross County for that. But Celtic did not play all that well, and yet we still managed to win 3-0. Sometimes you need that bit of luck to kick you on in a game. And to coin a phrase my old dad used to often back in the 90s, referring to Rangers goals, he said, I would say, Carter Vickers' shot deflected at a truly Masonic angle to find the net. But, they all count. And I thought the performance was good. I agree with what you said about Ajeti. Now, preface this, I am not comparing Ajeti to Henrik Larsson, okay? They're not even on the same planet in terms of ability. But I recall when I had my season ticket in the early 2000s, quite a few games where Larsson was quiet and would then nip in the last 5-10 minutes and score 2 or 3 goals. And that's pretty much what Ajeti did on Saturday.
Well, you're thinking Larsson, Liam. I'm thinking he reminds me of Hartson doing that as well for us.
Aye, Hartson was another one.
That's what he reminds me of the most.
Yeah. Because he's got the same issue with Hartson, that he's maybe not quite as mobile as... Well, certainly not as mobile as Kyogo. Yeah. But he just knows where to be at the right time to put the ball in the net, and he did it twice, and you can't argue with that. And we're going to have to depend on him for at least the next probably 2 or 3 weeks until Giacomakis is fit. Because it's debatable who's going to be back in the team first, him or Kyogo, because they're both a couple of weeks away. But no, overall, I'm happy with the result. I'm happy with the performance. Ajeti did what he's supposed to do, and you've got to give the guy credit for that. Jota, I think, had a solid debut. Faded a wee bit in the second half for me, but was actually more effective. Juranovic, not his best game. Definitely not his best game. Carter Vickers, solid. Him and Starfelt looked comfortable together. I felt sorry for Welsh, because Welsh has done nothing wrong. But what's the point in signing a guy for the English Premier League if you're not going to play him? So Carter Vickers had to start for me if he was fit. Joe Hart, what other guy on his 4th or 5th game for Celtic gets the captain's armband? That just speaks volumes to the guy's leadership qualities, and he has stepped up and he's already becoming a hero for us.
Look at the shirt he wore in warm-up as well, Liam. What a class act.
Yeah. Now, you can't tell me that Joe Hart, I doubt he knew much about that before he came to Celtic, but he's clearly done his homework now that he's here and now that he's one of us. He's doing everything he can to make sure that he does fully become one of us. And I love the big guy. Never thought I would say that about England's third greatest goalkeeper, but there you go.
I think he came out in an interview recently and said as much, where he was just desperate for a team where fans could get behind him, and and I think we're all right in saying that he's probably found that at Celtic.
He just wanted the love. He just wanted the love. Someone to give him a cuddle and just embrace him.
Get somebody to give him a chance, give him some games. Fans get behind him, and he's done all that. So, yeah, I'm also shocked and pleased at how shocked I am.
I want to touch on a couple of things you guys have spoken about before we wrap up this game. Liam, you were talking about you don't bring in Carter Vickers from the Premier League and not play him. I think the decision more came down to, okay, do we keep Welsh in or Starfelt? It didn't come down to Carter Vickers. He was starting regardless. So for Ange, it was, are we going to play the £4.5 million signing that we had coming from Russia and Starfelt, or are we going to play Welsh, who, let's be honest, leading up to that, he's looked a little bit leggy, leading up to the international break. So for me, I actually have no problem with Starfelt getting the run of games there. And to throw a stat in that Sean said, Starfelt had 110 passes for the game. Ross County stats passes for the whole game. Attempted passes, not just completed, was 220. So Starfelt had half the amount of passes as the whole Ross County team in that game. So it shows he put work in, and that shows how dominant we were when we had 78% possession in the game to their 22%. That pretty much says it all. Something else that you mentioned, John, about Jota and Abada in the first half. Abada could have had a hat-trick in the first half. Like you mentioned that 3-0 wasn't a good result. I actually reckon we could have easily done it by a bigger margin. If Abada easily could have had a hat-trick by half-time. We hit the crossbar, and I think it was Kalmack or someone or Turnbull, one of them hit the crossbar as well. We could have easily put 7 or 8 past this team. But at the same time, the polish wasn't there because our front three was their first game playing together. Ajeti hardly plays. Jota's first game for the club. Abada, coming in, hasn't played with that front line. So I can understand why it looked a little disjointed. But, yeah, as you said, if this was under Lennon, we would have lost this game.
Yeah.
Or at least drawn it. So I can understand what you're saying, but I saw a lot of positives there. I'm trying to keep not the green tinted specs, I'm trying to keep it, okay, this is early days. We've got to get guys in, give them a chance to get used to playing together. So, yeah, we still got the win. We got the 3 points, and we'll improve from that going forward. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a big privilege to then effectively have a wee moan about certain players when you beat a team 3-0, right? It's 3 points, and 3-0 is 3-0. It doesn't really matter about any other stats or performances. A win's a win, right? I think really what I was just getting at with Abada and Jota was some of their decision making at some crucial moments. I think you're probably right. I think in another game with a bit more polishing and refinement, he probably does walk away with a hat-trick. I just think there's times where if he cut it back or crossed to the back post, it's a guaranteed goal. And it could have been, a really flattering scoreline like 6-0 or something.
There's also cutbacks to Turnbull running in towards the penalty spot. There was Rogic was wide open another time. So there was plenty of options there where our wingers, the final ball wasn't quite there in the first half. I think Ange gave him a good kick up the arse.
That's what it is.
And, as you said, in the second half, come out and better lucky than good on that first goal for Carter Vickers. But like Ajeti's first header, I thought, oh yeah, it's just a simple header. And then you see the reverse angle replay, and it's like the work that he did to get his head onto that and get the angle right. Class.
Yeah.
It was a class finish. And then to be Johnny on the spot for that second one and just get that header in after McCarthy should have scored his own header. Like, that's what a good poacher does. That's what he needs to do if he's going to play that position. So, yeah, it's good to have different options at our strikers. We've got Furahashi's speed and movement. We've got Ajeti who's, as I said earlier, reminds me of Hartson in terms of the type of player. He looks a step slower than the other guys in the forward line, but he's a different sort of guy. And then you've got Giakoumakis to come in. Who the hell knows what he's going to be, but it looks like a mixed bag. So could be the similar sort of thing where, you got the Furuhashi as the Larson sort of role. Giakoumakis could be the Sutton, and you could have Ajeti as the Hudson. Imagine if you've got players in those sort of roles.
Well, we are going to Seville, so that's very, very fitting, isn't it?
That was why I threw that one.
Well, we'll have to wait and see how good Giacomakis is at noising the Huns up on Twitter before we compare him to Hartson, to Sutton, I mean, sorry.
Yeah. I think Ayeti was getting a lot of stick online and stuff, so claiming that he wasn't making the right runs and stuff. But he's not that type of bloody player, is he? He's completely different, and we need the players around it. And you're absolutely right, Jarrod. I think it's going to take time for the players to learn each other and bed in and stuff. But he's a different type of striker, and that's all. They just need to play to those strengths.
Let's just work on something here, John. From last year's final team of the season, how many guys that started last weekend of the 11 do you reckon would have started in that last game last season?
So, as in, how many players do we currently have in our team that were also in the end of last season?
Last game for us last season.
Probably 2, right?
3. 3's your answer. You got Greg Taylor, Carl McGregor, David Turnbull. That's it.
Yeah. There you go, Taylor. Yeah, exactly, right? How shocking is that? That's mental. And how good is the team, by the way? Like, I know we're in the privilege now where we can nitpick. Like, it's not perfect, but we're in that position right now. I think that's, God, what a turnaround. But, we did all that last week on the transfer pod.
And the funny thing, when we look at the bench, right, there's only one guy there on the bench who would have been the starter in that last game of the season, which was Welsh. There's one extra on the bench. All the others are additionals. So that shows the turnover in the squad there. So it's going to take time. So as long as we're picking up points and improving week on week, I'm happy with that. I don't want to come across as a whinging, negative sort of bastard because it's we only won 3-0 and be one of those self-indulged Celtic fans. Nah, 3 points is most important at the moment, and we'll develop and improve as the season goes on. Simple.
Absolutely. That's all that matters is the score.
All right. Next topic.
Big one.
This one could go for a bit. All sorts of shit's out there. So I'm going to read the statement first, right? And then I'm going to follow it up with an interview. And then we'll that I recorded, and then we will discuss it from there. So Celtic Football Club announced today that Chief Executive Dom McKay has stood down from his positions for personal reasons. Dom McKay said, "I'd like to thank the board and everyone at Celtic for their support and wish everyone at Celtic every success for the future." Celtic Chairman Ian Bankier said, "We thank Dom for his efforts on behalf of the club, and everyone wishes Dom and his family very well for the future." Celtic's Director of Legal and Football Affairs, Michael Nicholson, who's been with the club since 2013, has been appointed to the board as Acting Chief Executive Officer. I won't read the rest of it. We all know what it is. So that's the update on Dom leaving. Now, off the back of that, Celtic Twitter, Facebook groups, the works went into meltdown because people were like, oh no, Dom's left. Does that mean Ange is next out the door? I thought Ange did really well to come at this with a straight bat and play it out with this interview that was said after the game on the weekend.
We've just got to be careful about the narrative about who brought me to the club and all those kind of things. I think, from my perspective, obviously I was surprised as anyone that Dom resigned yesterday, but I've got to be respectful of him and his family. When people cite personal reasons, there's a reason they do that. And from the club perspective, Michael is now in charge, and which is good for me because I already know Michael. I've already been working with him. And my attitude to all these things, we're all just transient figures here. We all pass through this great club. The constants are the ones in here that come, and what they expect is that irrespective of what happens, the next day you get on with representing this football club and try and do the best. And I've had that view my whole career, and nothing that's happened recently changes that.
So, Liam, I'll throw to you first. What do you think that domino effects are going to be with, Dom leaving the club, Nicholson coming in, and everything off the back of that? I'd love Penny for your thoughts, please.
No, I'm going to apply a wee bit of educated guesswork here, based on journalism background, right? As a general rule, if you hear something from 3 or 4 different sources who don't know each other, and you believe in the veracity of those 3 or 4 different sources, it's probably true. Okay? So what I'm about to say isn't true. I'm just saying I think this is probably true. Okay? Don McKay came in with the rugby background and a background of, okay, right, you need to scrap this, scrap that, shove that out, change this, change that, change that. And Celtic are not ready for that. You can't just march in and suddenly demand that everything gets turned upside down. And to be honest, that's not a good idea to do that at a football club anyway. Football clubs are all about continuity, and Ange referenced that in his excellent speech there. He said, we're all transient figures passing through this great club. And I think from what I've heard, Don McKay didn't quite get that. I've also heard that he had rubbed a few people up the wrong way with his attitude. He was a bit overbearing. He was trying to get people to do things very much his way without any sense of adaptability. Again, thinking like a rugby man in a football situation, right? I'd also heard, and again, this is just what I've heard, that he had pissed off certain high-level people within the club by trying to take credit for Ange coming to Celtic. It was like Ange was his guy. He went out and got him, and he kept talking about how he used to live in Japan, so he knows. Like when he lived in Japan, he had hee-haw to do with the J League. He knows nothing about Japanese football. Right, that much was evident. And from what I understand, Ange was being spoken to before Don McKay was in position. So as much as we have our issues with the guy, that's as much a Peter Lawwell thing as anything else. So, yeah, I just think it's Don McKay will no doubt go on to be very successful in the corporate world wherever he goes next. But I think Celtic tried it for a few months and just realised this isn't the guy, it's not working out. And whether you want to say that's the board being backward or Don McKay not understanding the scope of the job fully, I think it's a bit of both. But the upshot of it is we need a new chief exec. But thankfully, losing the chief exec does not mean we're going to lose the manager, because I don't think the two are even very closely connected.
Well, what we're hearing over here, and I'll just say some of the stuff that's reported and you're hearing in the backside of it over, especially down here in Melbourne, is, all right, so Ange, when he was in Japan, Don was back in Scotland, so there was no crossover between when Don McKay was in Japan and when Ange was there. So that's the first question. The second thing you're looking at is, okay, the frustration in that you can imagine is that if Peter Lawwell has gone and they've been trying to sign up Fergal Harkin as director of football, Fergal has then referred saying, let's bring Ange in from Yokohama F. Marinos because that's part of the City Group. I'll work well with him and we'll implement things. And then the rumours you have are Don McKay saying, nah, let's not do that, and kiboshes it, but then they don't bring anyone in. What's the next step in that plan? Because you're hearing, like, that's something I'm hearing online, not here. But then the third thing as well is, and this is my personal point of view, is why I'm not a board apologist. Those guys, as far as I'm concerned, we need a lot of change on the board. We need freshening up. That's my personal opinion. However, I would rather the board act the way they have now after 72 days and say to Dom, it's not working. The way you're trying to tear things down and rebuild it, and it's not sitting in with what we want to do as a club going forward, fine. I'd rather cop the short-term pain now for a long-term game, because the last thing I want to do is have these back behind the scenes battles going on for another 12 months. You get to end of the season, Rangers somehow win the league. They get that 30 million kitty. They're straight into the Champions League. And then we're like, this isn't working. See you later, Dom. I'm going to start all over again. I'd rather address it now, get it over and done with, and off we go. And I know it sounds harsh, but I've been in jobs where I've gone in after a week. You're like, why did I come here? I've worked at companies where people have come in and been gone after 3 days. To me, it's the harsh reality of business. And I don't technically agree with it because Dom and those fan media things was really impressive. But at the end of the day, it's all about the club. And that's all that matters to me. I fell in love with this football club as a young boy. This is my club, my team. I've grown up supporting them. And I don't care who's on the board in terms of, I don't know them. I wouldn't even recognise half of them if I was to see them in the street. If I was over in Glasgow, I wouldn't recognise them. But I definitely recognise Ange. I definitely recognise Brendan Rodgers. I definitely recognise Neil Lennon, the previous managers. I'd recognise our players. That's the face of the club. And Ange, in my opinion, is our actual biggest blessing at the moment. The fact that he's been through these sort of situations before, and it's not a first job as a manager. He's been a manager 25 years now. He's been there, done that, seen it before. But what's your thoughts, John?
Well, I think I disagree slightly with both you guys' opinion on what we needed from a CEO at this point. And I actually think that we did need somebody like, if we are to believe the stuff on social media, we did need somebody to come in and kind of shake things up. And I think any professional in any sort of high corporate environment like Celtic and the Celtic board would never have let it be in such a detrimental way that really affects the business massively. But I do think we needed and we still need somebody to come in and shake things up, because we are really behind in the terms of a modern football club than a lot of other European equivalents, Porto and Ajax and all the others as well. We are quite far behind them, and we did need somebody to really bring us forward a lot. The first thing I did as well, I mean, as I do every week, I had a chat with my old man and stuff, and without going into too much detail, he's been a director and been on boards and stuff, and been HR director of big pharmaceutical companies in Europe and stuff. So he's used to all of the corporate structure and stuff. And I asked him about all of this stuff, and he said one of the most interesting things that he felt was the wording that Celtic used to communicate Dom's resignation to the stock exchange. And he said that it was very boilerplate, as if there was politeness and manners involved. But if it was generally just the personal reasons, in the sense that Dom just had to step away, and not some of the things that we're discussing, there'd been a bit more superfluous language around him leaving. So I think, although it could be complete nonsense, a lot of the rumors that we're discussing are probably quite true. There's been a falling out at some point, right? Whether it's Dom or some of the stuff about Peter Lawwell's continued position at Celtic and stuff, I think that's a bit of nonsense. Dermot Desmond undermining Dom McKay, I think that's a nonsense as well. Dermot Desmond's a member of the board, but he has, he's a majority shareholder, sure, but there's other shareholders that have large stakes at Celtic on the board as the executive members, and they all have to get together and make strategies and stuff. So it would be the board and Dom that haven't been getting on, not individuals in particular. I think I've written down some things. I said some common sense things. Ian Bankier stepping down, I don't think has much to do with Dom leaving. Ian Bankier is coming up to retirement. I think he's been at the club for maybe 10 years. Yeah, right. I think and see if there is this domino effect, and we all want people like Ian Bankier to move on. He's one of the dinosaurs that we as Celtic fans asked to step down and stuff. As a non-executive, he's not an owner of Celtic. So what he brings to Celtic, we don't know, because of all the problems that we've been having and all the problems that we can recognise. He's one of the people that makes those decisions, and we can't get rid of the people that own the club on the board because they own the bloody club. So the ones that don't, they need to step down. They're all the type of. But anyway, that's Ian Bankier is a different
Can
argument.
I just jump in on something there quickly?
Sure.
The thing I find weird about Bankier is he's the chairman. If you look at any other club, no one knows who their CEOs are, but everyone knows who their chairmans are. It's asked backwards with us. It's like, who's our CEO? It's Peter Lawwell. It's, Don McKay. It's now Nicholson. Who's your chairman the whole time? Oh, Bankier. Who's he? I don't know. Some old codger who should be retired 5 years ago. Like, doesn't make sense to me. It's backwards.
I know. It is. It's very strange, but look, and I think I'm gonna be honest, right? I am very much in the camp of I smashed the panic button pretty bloody hard when I heard that he was stepping down and stuff. And I think because and what I'm concerned with is the time frame between now and the January transfer window. There is so much to do at Celtic behind the scenes, and this is just another thing that we have to now resolve. And I just don't think the people that make those decisions have the right resources and the time to do it. We now need, let's just for argument's sake, we need a CEO. We need probably a director of football. We need new sports scientists, probably a sports psychologist. We need a new head of recruitment. We need more scouts. We need an analytic department. There is so much that at Celtic that we're so far behind in that modernization.
Recruitment.
Yeah, well, we have none of that. We have all of that. Who is the guy that went off to Leipzig? Was he not head of the physiotherapy at Celtic or something?
Head of sports science.
Head of sports science. We have none of that at Celtic, and it's just been these vacant positions, these leadership roles that I think that was what Dom was trying to do, plus lots of stuff as well, and that just panicked a lot of people, the dinosaurs on the board, and that's where a lot of the rubbing. I mean, look, rubbing. That's where the tension came. I think the other half of Glasgow's doing the rubbing just now, but I think McKay leaving is concerning for me. It's a real concern.
Can I jump in on something there again, John? You said about dinosaurs on the board not being on board with all the changes that we need, like all those positions we need filled. I think it's a twofold thing on that. When Rodgers was there, we had all that set up, and we slowly bit by bit let it just wilt away from what it was. So the board knows that is required. They can obviously see that. But I don't think at the same time Dom coming in from rugby understands exactly how many of those things that needed to be done and done urgently. And where Ange said about transfers a while back, I don't think people on the board, my requests are getting through to the board enough, and then suddenly Desmond comes out and says he's getting involved. You look at the two and two together, there's the understanding that Dom needs, but then there's the side the board has, and I don't think they were meshing.
I mean, that's evident, right? In whatever happened behind the scenes, there wasn't this mesh, and I think we can safely assume that that's the case, rather than like they would never, Celtic would never say to the stock exchange or to the Celtic fans there was a personality clash here, because that's really concerning if they were to ever say that. That would have to be public knowledge and evidence that happened for them to actually admit something like that. So saying personal reasons might just mean something like the reason is the personalities didn't mesh, right? It could be as simple as that. But what we crucially need is somebody then who understands football, but in a similar vein to Dom. I think having someone like, I mean, I don't hate the guy. I think having Gordon Strachan in around Celtic, I'm okay with that. I think that is an okay thing. We need that position filled. We need the structure set in place. At least he has the experience, doing the things that we would need. But I think that was. I think one of the rumors is that was him coming in as this advisor role was one of the reasons why Dom left. But yeah, I'm still in that very much panic camp. Yeah, that's my thoughts on the McKay situation. Not great. We need to get it sorted fast.
Yeah, the thing is as well with all this that the club is in a period of transition already, and you don't need more on top of that. You know, we don't need more uncertainty on top of what's already going to be an uncertain season, regardless of where we end up in the league and what have you. But again, I'm choosing to draw positive from it, and I think the way Ange has handled it and the fact the team still went out and won regardless, he's clearly not let it affect the players. And that is immensely positive.
Yeah, I actually don't think a change of board personnel would affect the players that much.
No.
You know what I mean? These are professionals, right? They turn up and they do their job. Ange has got a job. The players have got a job. I would be shocked if any of those players gave a shit who their CEO is for their day-to-day life. Ange is their boss, right? That's all that matters to them.
Well, Scott McDonald said on a YouTube show, 67 Hail Hail, that he didn't really care who was on the board or know who the CEO was. Any time he dealt with them was contract time. That's it.
Yeah,
you signing your deal. Who's signing the deal? Who's signing your checks? As long as the money's in your account twice a month or whatever, great. You need a renegotiation, cool. That's who you deal with them. Otherwise, you don't really have much to do with them every day. It's all about the gaffer and your teammates and your coaches and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I think the only reason why we know who the board members are is because we're heavily invested in Celtic. And we just expect something a bit different. And I've said this to other people, right? See the second that we start getting stuff sorted, see the second we do all these things that most Celtic fans want, and we start winning games regularly, all of this will go away. Nobody will care. Nobody really cares about Dermot Desmond. Nobody really cares about the Ian Bankia. We only care about them because recently we've been not playing so well. Do you know what I mean? Until before Ange, do you know what I mean? Like, that's the only reason why we care so much.
I only learned who all these people on the board were because of these, these Green Brigade banners, and I'm like, who the fuck's that guy?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, for the longest time, I thought that we had a guy on the board called Tory Cunt because that was all that Ian Bankia was referred to as,
Yeah. So any last thoughts on whole Dom McKay situation, guys, before we wrap that one up?
No, I think we covered it. Just get it sorted, Celtic.
I think get it done quietly and let that shit off the pitch. As long as it doesn't get in the way of what's happening on the pitch, we're good. Like, let's just get it sorted. But Gordon Strachan's not the answer.
Not the answer long term. I tell you one thing just before we move on, right? See this guy that's taken over as the interim CEO. I think it'll be fine. I don't accept that this. He's been at the club since 2013. He understands that he'll be able to steady the ship until such a time that the position is filled.
It was Peter Law's right-hand man in terms of contracts and negotiations and all that sort of stuff because of his legal background. Like, if anyone's going to be able to jump in, tick the boxes, know the club inside out, and get things done, I think is probably going to be a necessary evil for the time being. So it's all about. At the end of the day, though, it's about the fans, team, and the manager. That's the holy trinity, and that's what it's all about.
Results on the pitch.
Just one final thing, right, before we move on. What do you guys think about the German model? The idea of having like a former player becoming the chief exec. I mean, for example, Bayern Munich, right? I think Franz Beckenbauer retired last year as their chief exec, and he's been replaced by Oliver Kahn.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, see me personally, I couldn't give two shits who is on the board. I just want them to be the best candidate for the position. I don't care the gender, the race, the religion. I don't care if they're a Celtic fan or a Rangers fan. If they're the best person to move Celtic forward, I want that's who I want on.
Yeah.
So if a former player is good, the former player is good.
It doesn't bother me either way. Either there, Liam. Like, it could be, if you have a former player in that role, great. If you have Captain Feathersaw, great. If you have Barney the dinosaur, great. If you had Tinky Winky, whatever. As long as it's the right person for the job, I don't care at the end of the day.
You're just saying Barney because of this bloody pink and purple goalie top I've got on, aren't you?
Yep. I had to. Couldn't help it. I was wondering if you pick up on that.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll quickly just touch on the next one. Odson Edouard. Off the bench with Crystal Palace, plays 10 minutes. 26 seconds into his debut or whatever, bang, goal. Then scores another one later on. I'm going to just say one simple thing. Okay? And I've seen a lot of people, there's been a lot of banter and shit like, this just shows how little he cared the last 18 months he was at Celtic. This just shows that, how different the leagues are, blah, blah, blah. You know what? At the end of the day, my personal opinion is pretty simple. Edouard was probably our best striker we've had since Larson, in my opinion. Normally when someone leaves, it's either him or Dembele. It'll be one of those two. Now, either one of them, when they both moved on, I don't really care what they do. I want them to have success in their careers, score goals. Why? Because we've got to sell on. That's the only reason I give a shit what happens from now on with their careers. But it was good to see him get out there and score. I think he'll be moving on very quickly, probably this time next year to another club, top end of the Premiership or off to somewhere else, and we'll get a hefty sell on for that. So, keep banging in the goals, Eddie.
Yeah, I wrote down. I think this is probably the last time we'll talk about Edouard until he gets sold again, because I think a lot of Palace fans were shocked about how good he was. Don't think any Celtic fan was. I've never seen him so happy. I've never seen him smile so much. He's made it for him. Like in his head, that's him. He's in the Premier League. He's done it, right? I wrote down all the best, good luck, and fuck him.
Yep.
So that's all I feel about Edouard right now.
Anything to add, Liam?
Well, I'm sorry. If I was using a microscope right now, I wouldn't be able to locate my interest in what happens next in his career, I'm afraid. I don't have any bad feelings to him, but he's no longer a Celtic player, so he's no longer my concern.
Until the sell-on clause, and then we care.
Until the sell-on clause, yes.
That's the only reason I brought him up, because I'm like, I just wanted to have this discussion, get it over. Okay, Eddie, see you later, done. Now go and do what you got to do and get us a nice chunk of cash in.
Exactly.
It
will be.
Next topic. We spoke about it on one of our last couple of pods about Barrowfield getting redeveloped. So Celtic get the green light for Barrowfield changing facilities, but we have to wait for indoor pitch approval with no grandstand planned. That's the headline. So apparently what we put in is to knock down the change rooms and the gym and that's already there and rebuild that. That's approved. We're waiting on other parts of the submission, which is a full-size indoor field. Then it's 3 or 4 other fields outside, one being plastic. So we can practice on that before we go to Livy. And the talk was they were going to do new kitchens and what's it called? So I was just trying to get the thing in. New changing facilities. There'll be dressing rooms for 6 teams, 2 sets of officials. The building will have a gym, office, first aid room, reception area. Then they're also wanting to do things so it's going to have Barrowfield will have a grandstand with what's it called, the food and beverage facilities and that there, so that the Colts and the women can play their games there. So fingers crossed it all goes to plan. The one thing I was shocked to hear though through all this is we have an indoor pitch at Lennoxtown, but it's only 3/4 the size of a normal field. And now we have to build this whole new other facility with another full-size indoor one for the first team to use. Why didn't we just build an indoor full-size one in the first place out at Lennoxtown? Like, it makes no sense to me. But anyway, it's good to see Barrowfield getting redeveloped. What's your thoughts, Liam?
Well, just to answer that last point, I've had some dealings in the past with property people and whatever, and you'd be amazed at how complicated just adding an extra few square meters to a property could be. Celtic might well have been pushing their absolute limit just to get the 3/4 length pitch in. I don't know that, but I'm just saying that that's a possibility, because people can get really shitty over square yardage when it comes to things like that. I think this is an excellent idea. I watched the women's game against Glasgow City at the weekend, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it's definitely a team that I would go and watch if I were in Scotland and Celtic were not at home that day. I think that if the move to Barrowfield goes through, I don't know how you would schedule it, but if there was any way that we could have the ladies or the Colts at home whenever Celtic were away, and offer some sort of season ticket package where people could maybe pay an extra £100 or something and get to go and watch the women's team. Because those women are playing some fantastic football. They came back from 2 goals down at the weekend to get a 2 each draw, and in the end they should have beat Glasgow City. They outplayed them for the entire second half. Special shout out to Shen Meng Yu, our Chinese signing. That girl is a phenomenal player. She absolutely ran the show in the second half. But on a side note, yeah, I think the women's team is something that's growing. This is part of that growth. And I actually think that it's the women's team more than the B team that is going to drive this Barrowfield project forward. Because the B team, remember, is still a 1-season experiment. Our professional ladies team is here to stay. And it's only going to get bigger as time goes on.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. This is a fantastic move. This is part of what we were talking about. Kind of ties into what we were saying about McKay and stuff. The modernization of Celtic. I think this is a really good move. I think the whole precinct of the East End of Glasgow needs more of this stuff going on. It's a really long conversation that we will have on a pod one day. But the stuff we're talking about with the hotel and all of that redevelopment and the new megastore and all of this museum, part of that in my head is also the redevelopment of Barrowfield and stuff, and making that another facility. If we were to get some better public transport out to the East End of Glasgow, this could be a real hub, a sporting excellence area for Glasgow, with Celtic Park and all of this stuff, and the aerodrome that's out there and all that stuff. The velodrome, maybe, whatever the hell it's called, maybe not, whatever. The cycling stuff. Look, I think it's a really good move forward, and I think if we can encourage, so what we were talking about before about the Celtic TV stuff for us who are overseas, but if we can encourage more Celtic fans to watch all the other Celtic teams, right? Because I think of recent years, Celtic fans we've always been very happy with it, right? We've never opposed the idea of watching a Celtic, the women's team and the Colts and stuff, and the youth teams and all that stuff. But it's becoming more commonplace now, I think, especially with the fan media and stuff, where we talk about it and we review it and we analyze it just the same way we do with the men, right? And I think this is a really good step in the right direction to probably getting Celtic fans in and watching the women and the Colts and stuff. What I would love to see is a bit of coordination between, and that's what a director of football would do as well, but a coordination between all of the teams so that they're not all playing at the same time. Because Christ almighty, you'd get people going to watch, let's just say, argument's sake, they go to watch the men at 3 o'clock. They'd be out by 5:30, 6 o'clock. You'd go watch the women at 6:45, something like that. And then maybe on the Sunday, for argument's sake, you could watch the boys, the Colts. That could really happen in the future. So, yeah, good step forward.
If I was over in Glasgow and we were playing at home, I'd go to that game, watch the men. But then if there's opportunity to then roll that into a women's game at Barrowfield or a Colts game later that night or whatever, I'd be like, why not? I've come halfway across the world. I want to soak up as much of this Celtic Football Club experience as I can. I'd go and watch them all. Like, it'd be dumb not to. So, I know that's me saying from this other side of the world, but like, if you've got fans buses running up from, say, England or whatever, or the north of Scotland coming down from like Aberdeen or Inverness or whatever, and they want to make a day of it, great. Why not? There's 2 games. Make it more, more bang for your buck. Go see 2 of the 3 teams play. Sure,
and it's revenue. It's more revenue, right?
And that's where Liam was saying chuck an extra £100 or something on the season book. I wouldn't even do that. I'd be like, if you're a season ticket holder, you can opt in to get tickets similar to the whole thing they did at the start of the season with the capacity, because it's not going to be the same. So if you've got 60,000 season ticket holders or something at the start, like for the men's team, if you say, okay, we can fit 10,000 people out at Barrowfield, who wants in, log in on this website and get your tickets, I'm sure a lot of them will be able to do that. And then others who don't, if you only want to be a women's member, season ticket holder instead of the seniors, you can do that. Like, there's a whole different range you can tackle it. But like over here, perfect example is Melbourne City. They just won the A-League. Their women's team has won, up until this season is gone, had won the women's league like 3 or 4 years in a row. They don't charge extra at all. If you're a season ticket holder of the club for the men's, you can go and watch the women's. Just show your membership in, you go. You can go and watch the youth team, so the equivalent of the Colts. Just show your senior membership in, you go. I know that because my brother's a member of them. He's a season ticket holder. He goes out to watch the women's game. And he loves it. And how do they make their money? You go out, they have a sausage sizzle, they have food and bev out there, they got merch, there's meet and greets, there's all sorts of stuff like that. It's like, there's ways around it. You don't need to actually charge extra to make money on that, because you'll make the money on the other ancillary stuff around the set.
Your residuals. I mean, to back that up further, I can give you another example of that. When I was living in Tokyo years ago, FC Tokyo did a thing called the British Football Fans Day. They know there's about 15 to 20,000 British immigrants living in and around Tokyo, right? Show a British passport, you get in for 500 yen, the equivalent of like, I think, three or four Australian dollars, right? So, of course, they got like an extra 15, 20,000 on their gate that day. All, of course, mostly English guys, all buying beers, all buying burgers, all getting pished. And the club must have made an absolute fortune. And, of course, I made a point of buying a scarf and a shirt while I was there as well, because that's just what you do when you go and see a new team for the first time. And that's the kind of lateral thinking I'd like to see come to Celtic, but I know it won't, because they only ever think about the bottom line, unfortunately.
You could do that in terms of, like what you're saying, not just for expats, but it could be, if you're a season ticket holder of the men's team, bring your kids for free or whatever.
Yeah.
And because season books are what, like £600 more, whatever it is, a season. So if I have a young family of, like, with 4 kids, they're not all going to have a season book. No way. They're too expensive, right? But if I can go, okay, I've got my season book for the men's team, but I can bring my kids to go and support the Colts team, the next generation of players coming through to the seniors, or go watch the women, because that's our professional women's team. Sure, it's a family day out. It's not going to cost a lot. There's food, drinks, buying some scarves, I get some merch, whatever. That's ensuring you get that next batch of Celtic fans engaged in the club from a young age as well, where they love the club, they want to go to the football, they know these next players coming through. And what do you get from that? They're the next bunch who are going to be buying those season tickets. And if you ever do somehow manage to extend the main stand and put that top deck over it, so it's the same as the Lisbon Lions, so it's 75, 80,000, that's where those extra season ticket holders are going to come from in the future. So you got to think of a big picture like that. It's not about now, it's about 20 years' time.
Yep. Absolutely, and I think I would be surprised if that wasn't the goal in the end, is to do all of this stuff we're talking about. Just doing it, right? Just getting around to actually doing it.
The family angle is definitely a way to go, because, I mean, just speaking from my own experience, my dad wouldn't let me go and watch a game against Rangers until I was like 14 or 15, because he thought, you're too young, it's too dangerous. And I think there's a lot of families think that way. So going to see the Colts, going to see the women's team, for younger kids is a good gateway into getting a full season ticket when their parents think they're old enough.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right, let's leave that topic there. If anyone's got any comments on what we're discussing, let us know in the comments below, wherever this is shared, or on whatever, on Twitter at Celtic Down. Let us know, because we'd love to continue the discussion with you all. So we've got Celtic versus Real Betis in Seville in the Europa League on Thursday night, Friday morning our time. John, what are you hoping for in that game?
I'm not hoping for a lot, right? I think this is our toughest opponent to date. And that's saying a lot. I know we beat Alkmaar recently. Alkmaar are a very good team. I think Betis is a step up. Probably the next toughest after those is probably Sevco, right? And we lost to Sevco. Probably shouldn't have, but we did, right? So when it goes wrong, it can go wrong. In a effective way, I guess. Like we really need the points, right? So I'm genuinely really hoping for a draw here, but and I think that's achievable away from home and stuff. If we play the right game, it's achievable. But there's a couple of things that I've written down about Betis at the moment. So look, it's going to be a tough game, but Betis are in really poor form at the moment. And both Celtic and Real Betis both play attacking football and possession football. So this could be a real dogfight. This could be a back and forth type of game. Or it could be a case of Celtic are really sat back when we're playing them in Seville, and then the reverse is true when they come over to Glasgow and stuff. Their team right now is full of stars. It's full of absolute danger men. I mean, Fekir, who used to play for Lyon, Bellerin, who obviously we know used to play for Arsenal, Canales used to play for Real Madrid and Valencia. Rodriguez is a South American guy that's come over, I think, this year, and he's absolutely lining it up in La Liga and stuff. Victor Ruiz, who's the old Napoli defender. Bartrea was an old Barcelona player. And then they've got Claudio Bravo, the old Man City keeper, sitting on the bench. This team is full of big players.
And now, then you look, he's managing them.
And then exactly, Pellegrini's managing them. This is a good team. Yes, they're playing shite just now. Fekir's not lining it up as much as the media in La Liga, media of La Liga thought that he was going to. But he's a fantastic player. We know that when he was playing for like the French national teams and stuff. I think if we get a draw away from home, it's a fantastic result. I'm not expecting a lot. I think there's going to be a lot of rotation going in. I would expect Forrest to come back in. I would expect Jovanovic to go back on the other side, and then Ralston to come in. We need our midfield to turn up. Is a really big one. We need Rogic and Turnbull and McGregor just to be absolutely, because they play a 4-5-1, right? So if we play three in the middle like we have been recently, and we play bad, we're going to get destroyed. So
I actually don't think we're going to see Rogic start this one. I think McCarthy will start, and they'll push Kelmack further forward.
Well, I was thinking about this today. I was thinking about, I think that should happen, but whether it will or not, I think Ange might take a risk, because when Rogic's good, he's fantastic. When he's very, very good, he's the type of player that you want in a game like this, because he can control a space and he can put through an absolutely deadly ball to somebody who actually, him and Ayeti would match up really, really well together. But he hasn't, like, when he comes back from Australia, he's a bit, he's not up to speed for a couple of games and stuff. So, I mean, I hope that's what happens, Jarrod. I hope maybe Rogic comes on as an impact player or something. But, a 1-1, I think, would be a really, really good result for me.
What do you think, Liam?
Oh, I want to be optimistic, but well, I'm going to do my Mr. T impression. My prediction: pain. I think we're in trouble, lads. I'll be honest. I hope, I hope we get something, but we need to play to our absolute best, and they need to underperform. That's the reality of it. I could see us getting gubbed here, but I hope I'm wrong.
Their form has been very poor recently, so
they're leaking goals. That's a positive. So yeah, I'm looking at it thinking, look, if we go over there, this is the weird thing because it's Europa League, but now there's that Conference League underneath or whatever it's called. The top 3 all go through after Christmas. So as long, realistically, we've got to pick up the points on the road as much as possible. But what we're looking at is if we can somehow pick up a draw here or a draw in Leverkusen, because I watched them on the weekend against Dortmund, and dude, forget it. Like that team's finishing top of the group, like straight up. White flag is up. Leverkusen the top of the group. So it's us and Betis are playing for second. Who's going to stay in the Europa League and who's going to go down potentially to the Conference League? Ferencváros, we should do them. I think Betis will do them. They won't get any points off those other games. So it's going to be vital on them. But if we can get a draw in this one, even if it's a 2-0, a 2-all draw or whatever, I'd be happy with that. But yeah, the old format for away games was win your home games, try and draw your away games. If you can do that, you're through.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like Leverkusen's going to be the toughest one. Betis, I think we could do them at our place. But
yeah,
in terms of their place, if we can get a draw there, if we can somehow take 4 points off them, I'd be happy with that.
That would put us through. That would put us through, assuming we could take at least four off of Ferencváros as well. I think that would take us through.
Points will get through, yeah.
I think 7-8 points, and we're through in this group. And I think I have to caveat how I feel about this game. I think if this was next year and Ange had a full year to build a team and and implement his style, I think we're talking a different game. I mean, it's just so fresh. We haven't even we don't really have depth in midfield. We don't really have that much depth in our fullbacks. And at this point, we have no depth in our forwards either because Giacomakis probably isn't going to be on the bench. So maybe next year. But
I'm calling it. Our goal scorer, it's going to be 2-all, and the guy to score the equalising header in the 95th minute will be Scales making himself a hero. Boom. There you go.
God, that would be a game to throw him in for, wouldn't it? Well, look, I would. Hey, we did Lazio, right? And they were miles ahead of us. So maybe we're in for another European folklore game. Let's see. So,
now we'll just change gears. We'll go back to the league on the weekend. I actually think this is our most dangerous game of the season so far. Us away at Livingston at the old Tony Macaroni on the plastic pitch. Thinking about it now, John, I think you could be right. I think we might actually see Rogic on Thursday because I doubt we'll see him on the plastic pitch.
Yeah.
So, on the weekend. So, I think we'll win that one 3-1. And the reason for that one goal is because they'll get some weird bounce on us that we just don't clear because it's on a plastic pitch. But, yeah, expect to win that game. Livingston's not playing that well. We've just got to keep picking up 3 points every way. But, yeah, that's the game. When I saw the fixture list and I saw we were away at Livingston with how crowded the start of the month of September is, I'm like, that's the game that, yeah, if we can pick up 3 points there, great. But we haven't been good at Livingston recently.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. Livy, they're not doing well just now, but it's not a team to underestimate, especially on that stupid pitch. I think 2-1, 3-1 is realistic because they'll probably score a goal either on the bounce or it'll be some shocking ref decision and they get a free kick and it's just lob it in and they nick a goal, but which happens too often against Celtic.
I got just got a thought for you. How many times do you think Joe Hart has played on a plastic pitch in his career?
Oh, not that often.
Actually, if assuming Man City played any Russian or Ukrainian teams in the Champions League, probably a few times.
I was thinking maybe a couple of England qualifiers against like San Marino or Moldova or someone like that.
Yeah, some then. All right,
probably counted on one hand. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I actually think the Livy game is going to be a game where we rotate a lot of players. That's a game we might see Scales and people like that coming in, I think.
It's a good opportunity as well to kind of put another ghost of last season to bed. Because the old Spaghetti Had was not a happy hunting ground last year. But I think we could, as I said, Celtic proved a point last weekend where played crap for large periods of the game, missing our star man Kyogo, and we still won 3-0. The next big question we have to answer is, can we go away from home and deliver a similar convincing performance? Livingston is possibly the most difficult venue apart from either Hearts or the Huns for us. And I think if we go there, win the game, I think that's another step forward on the road back. And that's a contradiction in terms, isn't it? A step forward on the road back. But you know what I mean.
I was like, hang on, what's
back to heights? Back to the heights. That's what you meant. Back to greatness.
God, that sounds like a title of a Steven Seagal film, doesn't it? A step forward on the road back.
Oh, dude.
Oh, Jesus.
All right.
Anyway.
So what do you reckon, Liam? Score prediction. We're going to get a win there or what?
All right, we're going to win 2-0.
There you go. We've all pretty much called it with a two-goal margin. Me and John saying 3-1 and you 2-0. So there we go.
And Joe Hart's going to save the penalty.
Hey, there it is. All right. So before we wrap up the podcast, everyone listening in, just thanks again. Appreciate your support. If you haven't subscribed to our podcast, can you please do so on your podcast app? We'd really appreciate that. Also, if you're on Twitter or Instagram, you can follow us at Celtic Down. On Facebook, we've got a group and a page on there. Feel free to like and join them. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out our website, www.celticdownunder.com. So, Liam, we'll start with you. What's your final thought for the podcast?
Final thought. I'm going to leave you with a quote from an inspirational movie I watched the other day. It ain't about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
That's good. That's a good quote. That's definitely from a Rocky film, surely.
Yeah.
I've chosen this as my thought of the day because I didn't want to bring it up in the pod so we didn't have to discuss it. So because of the old evidence going around with some of the new government rules in the UK, which we all know what I'm talking about, there's been a lot of Celtic fans on Twitter, which I have been suckered into arguing with. We now know the rules for entry for Celtic Park. You make the choice. You do not have a right to go and watch the things that you love to see. That's all I'm going to say.
Fair enough. And my final thought was going to be about vaccine passports, but because you just...
I was trying to be mysterious, Jarrod. I was trying to not say that.
All right.
Just get injected, you dozy fuckers. It's not that difficult. Sorry.
All right. My final thought, it's about supporting the team on the pitch, not supporting what's going on in the boardroom. That'll take care of itself. Let's just support the team, the manager, and focus on that holy trinity of us, or all three of us coming back together and being linked and intertwined as one, like we were in the Rodgers era. Like when you've got the fans, the team, and the management all on the same page, Celtic Football Club as a whole is such a wonderful place to, be involved in and support your team and see how just the environment of it all. So let's focus on that, and whatever happens on the board, let's just leave that to play out.
Here.
Yeah.
All right, John and Liam, thanks for joining us tonight on this pod. How?
Hell.
Hell.